hormone. Now, ACTH, adrenocorticotropic hormone. This is also known as corticotropin. Probably makes you think about cortisones, corticoids. That's how we're going to see them, okay? Their target, my adrenal cortex. My sympathetic nerve system targeted the medulla, the inner portion of the adrenal gland. My endocrine system is going to target the outer portion, the cortex. Okay, is everybody with me on that one? PRL, which is the prolactin, that one is for lactation. Now, like I said, that should be inhibiting unless it's almost time of birth and after. Growth hormone, also known as somatotropin. The reason for that, soma. Anytime you hear the term soma, you guys know that shop at out in the West End. What's that mall? No, way out in the West End. What's the mall that's out there? Short Pond. Okay. Yeah, I try not to go out there if I don't have to. There's a store there called Soma. Have you ever seen it? Okay. It sells clothes for like the body, meaning ladies' lingerie and stuff like that. Soma means body. Okay. So growth hormone, of course, acting on the full body. So somatotropin, it is the most produced hormone. And when we say widespread effects, yes, widespread effects. This is why when I see the commercials for stuff such as HGH, the human growth hormone, I don't know what long-term effects could come from a product such as that. I doubt the research knows what the long-term effects might be. So that becomes, you know, something more of a, I think, a beauty product ploy to try to get you to buy a product. Okay? Now, I don't think that taking human growth hormone in that format would be beneficial. I do know that human growth hormone that is medically used, like for example, people who are born with dwarfism. Now, there are different types of dwarfism, okay? But there is one type that's genetic, and it can be treated with human growth hormone. However, it is in a shot form, and it's medically administered. And yes, it works. It can add 4 to 5 inches to the stature of the person with the dwarfism. So that, yes. But this other that's not, you know, I guess we would say FDA controlled or whatever, okay, I would be very reluctant to say that it's going to do what it says it's going to do. And especially because it's in pill form. There's a big difference in something being pill form and something that can be administered to the vessels of the body. Big difference. So, I have my hormones of my hypothalamus. Some can travel to the anterior by way of the blood, meaning the portal system. I have some that will travel to the posterior by way of the nerves based on a tract, a fiber. All right? So, if we look at a representation of my hypothalamus to my pituitary and then target organs of the body for my anterior pituitary hormones, that is the relationship that I get. You can see that the hypothalamus will do the either releasing or inhibiting. They make their way to the anterior pituitary, which then creates its product to go to my target organs, which is kind of cool. So these are the areas that I was talking about for the ovaries, and like they're trying to show the development of an egg and the egg's home getting bigger and bigger until it literally spits the egg out, and then it becomes corpus luteum that secretes chemicals, goes to the uterus, and so forth. All right, and then over here in the scrotum, working on the tubules that are present for the production of the sperm. Okay, so that was sort of what I was trying to explain with the ovaries and the testes. Any questions so far? Pretty interesting, I think. I think it's a very interesting system. Once again, hormones of my posterior pituitary. Those are the two. We've mentioned that we get the information. It travels by tracts to the posterior. We're going to make anti-diuretic or oxytocin. These can and are stored in that posterior pituitary. Anti-diuretic hormone. Since it wants to let the body hold water, keep the water in, meaning don't let it all go to the restroom, okay? Anti-diuretic hormone, its target tissue, i.e. cells, are going to be cells of the kidneys. Now, we will get back to that hormone when we get to that chapter on the kidneys. And one of the things that it'll do, it'll reduce that volume of urine, meaning water gets to stay in the body. And what that does, it then affects the volume of the blood, and therefore blood pressure. It's really interesting how it's going to work. So we're going to also, we will be coming back to anti-diuretic hormone in the chapter on the kidneys. Another term for it is vasopressin. Have you all ever heard of that? Probably heard of it because that's a medication for blood pressure problems. So people are given that. The goal is for it to function in this manner so that we retain the water. Now, oxytocin, we would think that since the main goal is childbirth, that this would pretty much be a chemical just in females. No, oxytocin has a ton of reproductive abilities. So it is going to be in both sexes. Yes, it definitely plays part in childbirth and labor contractions and milk in the mammary glands and all that sort of stuff for childbirth. But oxytocin gets released at other times. Now, remember, the goal is all of this is to maintain homeostasis. One of the things about the characteristics of being an organism, okay, is that you can reproduce and produce viable offspring. So, oxytocin plays a part at the time of copulation, at the time of mating, you name it. Oxytocin is present. Now, in males, it has to work a little differently, but it's still there. In females, most definitely showing up straight as oxytocin. So it's very interesting how that works. So now we've got hormones of my hypothalamus. I now have hormones of my anterior pituitary and hormones of my posterior pituitary. Take a break. Be back at 10:30.